seeing it clearly?
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Clear for everyone? Okay, perfect. All right, so good morning again, everyone. The session today is just going through the PSTL2. When we are talking about PSTL2, it is important that we ensure that you make any backups before running the tool because it affects your databases. And we always want to ensure that there's a backup in hand in case anything goes wrong. Now, many of the tools are going to prompt you or prompt the users to make a backup when you're using the PSTL. And for many of you who are not familiar with PSTL2, Professional Tools Library, it's located to the bottom of the screen, and you'd usually see a gear for the PSTL. If you don't see this gear, it's a matter of installing the PSTL in your add-on programs in your Windows computer, and then installing the server on GP. All right. So the tool that does not prompt you to have a warning, that does not prompt users to have a warning message, either would assume that you would take the appropriate steps and back up your data. Like I said, this tool can be considered dangerous too. So please also, before using it in your live environment, please ensure that you have a backup. Now, once you have it installed, you would have to go to add. You would add your window. You would give your PSTL a description if you would like to add it as a shortcut. And under the technical service tools on the project, you can find Professional Tools Library located here. Once you have added that, it will show up as a shortcut where you could launch. Right? And you also would require essay to be able to launch PSTL and have it installed. And just remember, if you don't have it installed, don't worry, it's a very, very easy install. So in the PSTL tool, this is basically what the tool looks like. It has one main window with all the tools enabled for the different modules. You have system tools, financial tools, purchasing, sales, etc. So it has so many products on this Windows pane that you are able to utilize to make modifications to certain aspects of your system. So the first one that we'll just talk about is the shortcut copy. Now, you may want to know why you'd want to use the shortcut copy. Now, for the shortcut copy, you may have a user that may be leaving, and you would also like to be able to take over, or maybe a user is moving out of the current position that they're in, and someone else is currently taking over. You can copy their shortcuts that they see in their homepage or in various areas of their homepage. And the shortcut copy is going to allow you to copy it from one user to another, right? So all this wants to know is what user you want to copy from and what is the user. If it is I had multiple users set up for utilize GP, you could have clicked on next and you select the user that you'd like to copy from. If you want to copy from lesson user 1, and then you would like to copy to lesson user 2 as an example. Right, so that's a nice, easy way just to have a smooth transition if you have one person shadowing another and you want to teach them the shortcuts that they use, you can copy those shortcuts from one user to another. And that's a nice and easy way to copy the shortcuts. And also, someone may have created a shortcut probably a very long time ago. They may not have remembered the shortcut that they have created and how they have created it. So it's just a good thing if you would like to just grab that shortcut that they have. Right? So another functionality that the PSTL tool can allow you, there are sometimes you may be working late at night and you would receive like a pop-up stating that it's to change your system user date to the next state because you left your system open. So GP will give you that pop-up. So it's midnight and you have to change the date to the following day. So in GP and for the PSTL tool, there's something called update user date. Now, if you turn this on, what this is going to mean is that that pop-up that comes up at midnight wouldn't show anymore. So if you do leave it overnight and you actually forgot to log out of GP for any reason, it's going to basically allow you to shut off that update user date by just enabling the update user date within PSTL. Right? So that pop-up is not always going to be coming up if you leave your GP open overnight, for example. Now, for those of you who have multiple databases, there are a lot of processes in terms of creating new vendors, right? You have vendors, you want to make sure that we have all the information that we need. So there are vendors inside of GP, and you have that set up under cards, and you want to make sure that you have assigned all that information to your vendors. Now, if you do have multiple databases, you'll probably need to do it a couple of times, depending on how many databases that you have. If you have 5 databases, you would have to, create your vendors or update your vendors for your databases. Now, and you would do it for each database. So there is a tool in the PSTL tool that it's going to allow you to, if it is you create the vendor in one company, it is actually going to trigger you to create it within another company. So let's go back to our PSTL tool. Okay, so within the PSTL tool, you would see a PM master trigger. And within the PM master trigger, you're going to see that it is available not just under purchasing for payables, but it's also going to be available for receivables as well. You have the RM master trigger, right? So one is called PM and one is called RM master trigger. So anytime you create a customer or a vendor, it is actually going to say, if it is you create it in the Fabricant company, I may also want to create it in 1 or 2 of my live companies as well. So you could have 2 of your companies or 3 of your companies follow that information with the same setup, and then your rest of your companies that don't. It's really up to you, right? So you can have different companies copying to other companies, and you could have some that does not do that. So it is very interesting if you want to reduce the load or the multiple work that you have to do in creating your vendors across different companies. So you are able to select, this is the master company. I'm currently in my Fabricam company. And you can say if you would like to replicate it to which company database. Now, I only have one database that's currently installed, but you understand the point. If you had multiple companies that are installed, you are able to select under the replicate to database. And you can state if you would like to replicate, as you can see, you can replicate vendors, customers, or accounts. All right. So it's a pretty handy tool that can be used within Microsoft Dynamics GP. All right. Now, in our purchase order entry, under the purchase order entry screen, right? You may want to know where your cost defaults from when you put in a line. So that is a good question. So you can actually tell it where you want the unit cost to come up from. Inside of your PSTL tool, there is a functionality. So let's just go back to PSTL for a minute. And in the PSTL window, you would see something called cost defaulter. So in the screen, you are able to see the standard and the current cost options. So it can default the cost and the PO from the current cost or your standard cost. So it's going to ask you whether you want to default which cost. So in GP, we're going to just take a look at what those costs are. So I'm going to just hop into my item maintenance window. Okay. So I'm going to pick an item. I'm just picking in one. See what we have. Okay. So if you choose to have your default to have, and let me put it side by side so we can kind of see it. Together. So if we would like to have the default to have defaulted to your current cost, that is going to be the line that's currently here. So you'll see current cost for $28.46, right, in my item card. Now, you may see the current cost changing all the time, and you would like to know where does it come from and how does GP obtain it. So that's how GP understands what the current cost is. So the current cost would come from the last time that it had a positive adjustment. So all the positive adjustments will come from things like your inventory adjustments, or a purchase order that you may receive. Whatever is the last cost that you would have received it at is going to be your current cost. right? The other option that you have is standard cost. So we have the standard cost in the item maintenance as well. So your standard cost is going to be a cost that you set. So if you want to set the cost and say the standard cost is $60,000, for example. Okay, so you can choose for that to be whatever you want. So you do have the option where you would like the cost on the PO to default from current cost or that standard cost within the system. And the PSTL tool allows you to do that. Right, so if you do have a kind of frustration as to what your PO cost defaults to, you can take a look at your item maintenance. You can see what is the last cost that you have set within. All right. So if you're using the sales order entry, for example, if you're using this sale inventory or you're using purchase order purchasing as well, let's say, for example, I choose a particular invoice. So when you create an invoice, you might want to know how often does your customer purchase something, right? So you would see under my additional option, I have something called historical lookup. Now, if you don't see historical lookup under your additional options, what that would mean is that you probably don't have it turned on in your PSTL tool. So what this is going to do is going to look up by this item number. Every time this customer has purchased something, this window is going to tell you when they bought it, how much was it, the quantity invoice, etc. So this is going to tell you what the customer has purchased from you before. So it shows you all the historical transactions. So if you have a customer and you want to see what that customer purchase order history look like, or just a historical information, you are able to view that within the historical lookup. So you are able to now validate that a customer purchased this at 2017 and you paid X amount for this item. All right. So you can actually see in the additional column, or if it is you're actually inside the item entry window, so you highlight and you highlight the arrow, you can actually get the same information here as well, right? So it shows the same window, just another area as to where to open it, so you can see what they have. And also, if you do have another item, you can type it in here. So this allows you to type your item number. So this is a text field that allows you to validate various items. If you want to go look up to see what other items they may have purchased. Right, and you can also do a filter in terms of you want to see where they have done it by document date, ascending, descending order, by item description, etc. So just to show you where you can have this installed. Right. So firstly, in your PSTL window, you would see sub-customer item lookup. Now, if you have a checkbox next to it, then you know that it's currently running. If you don't have the check mark, then it's not currently running, right? And if you can't get that historical lookup inside of SOP, right, you also need to have that installed, and that is done under your sales, under your setup window, under sales order processing, and under additional, you could create that initial lookup data. And that is going to allow you to validate the historical information. As I mentioned, the last invoice date, the last price used, view information within that sales order entry, and sales details window. All right, so very cool PSTL functionality. And just remember, it's also important that, like I said, you must be logged in as SA to do the initial data creation, right? And that's going to allow you to have that set up within GP. Now, you'll also notice that, let me bring up PSTL. Now, for your receivables transaction, there may be some times where it doesn't move through the open and history the same way as payables, right? So in payables, as soon as the invoice hits 0 on the unapplied amount, it moves to the status of history. Now, in sales, it does not do it the same way. It will still remain open until you actually run a routine, right, in the remove transactional history removal tool that's within GP, right? Well, now sometimes it might be that you have the transaction, it may be fully applied at that time, and they may have paid you for the wrong thing. You may need to unapply it. In the PSTL tool, you have a functionality that allows you to unapply. Now, if you try to void it within sales, sometimes that also may tell you, no, you're unable to void, or you're unable to unapply from the sales side of things, right? Now, in this PSTL tool, we have a functionality that calls RM transaction unapply. Now, with the RM transaction unapply, it's going to allow you to actually go to any of the documents that might be in history. All right. So you can see all the invoices, and anything that has a check mark next to it, it means that it's currently applied. So if you unchecked it, it would become unapplied, and it will be moved to a status of open. Right? So this is going to now allow you to reapply your invoices as you go. Right? So you might also notice that you can use this tool. So say, for example, you may be doing a cash receipt, and you actually take, say it probably had an error and it went to batch recovery. You processed it and it's now out of batch recovery, and you still can't apply that invoice because it's saying that it's fully applied. Now, when you go into that particular window, it might state that you don't have any cash receipt. that's currently applied to it, you can use this window to unapply it from this window as well. So this tool is going to actually allow you to help you when you need to unapply those transactions, when you need to move to history, right? And also it's going to have, like, if you have like some, I'm going to call it like a post apply or something like that to your transaction, right? You can go to this window and just utilize this window, right? To see if there's anything applied and unapplied from this window, right? And I mean, if it's still stuck at that point, then feel free to open a support ticket with us and we can also see how best we can have that issue resolved. Right, but there are sometimes that, you know, things may show that it's applied, it's not really applied, but you could also use those as a kind of like a boundary as well. Right, so that's another cool functionality in the PSTL. Now, another tool that we can look at, most people probably already aware of it, but it's the modifier tool, right? So actually, before we hit on the sales modifier, let's look at the date doc verify. So this is another also cool functionality within the PSTL. Now, you would notice that it's currently enabled. So what this is going to allow, if for any reason that you're putting in an invoice and say for any type of transaction, it doesn't really have to be an invoice, but simply an invoice or receivables transaction. For example, let me go to my receivables transaction entry. And you don't know that the month is currently closed, you are able to receive the prompt. So let's select the customer and let's enter a document date. So here I receive a message that states the fiscal period that contains the date is closed. So this is a perfect example of what you would want to see when you're entering your document date, rather than you already post the transaction and then you have to recover it from batch recovery, go to the edit list to see what was the issue, to realize that you posted to a closed fiscal period, right? So by having that enabled, you are able to receive a notification stating that the fiscal period that you're trying to post to is a closed date, right? So that's very helpful, right? So, like I said, once you put in a fiscal period that's closed, it is going to tell you right up front that it's closed. And I find that this is very helpful for when you're creating any documents. So it does work inside of receivables, payables. Anytime you put a posting date in, that's going to be the wrong date, you are going to be notified. All right, so SOP, POP, receivables, anywhere that has a date, it's going to help you in your day-to-day entries, especially at month ends, period ends, or sometimes you may just have forgotten what date it is, and you may be entering from a previous year, because we have seen where a person posts a previous year accidentally. So this is also important. All right. So I am going to delete this. Okay, let's move to items a little bit. So our items, there are sometimes our items as we know it may have, a name change, whether it may be coming from a vendor or you're just trying to clean up your item numbers in the system. So you just want all your items to be in alignment. And as you know, you cannot delete a master record if it has history. That's not possible. So GP would tell you that you cannot delete it. It's going to, there's a document that exists against the particular item, right? So now we don't want a case where we have to now double the item list. We want to change the item name and we want to have it cleaned up. We want to have it aligned, as I mentioned. So in the PSTL2, the same way that there's a sales modifier, there's also what we call an item number modifier. So that's going to allow you to now change the name. All right, so by clicking next, is going to allow you to select an item number from the list. Right, so if I was to choose the first one on the list, and you can actually change it to a new item number, right? If I want to change this to SC, for example, and you can convert it. Now you are also able to import them, all right? So this would actually use a text file and you can import that from a text file document, right? So this is actually going to change everything in its history once you click convert. So if it has been on a sale, all right, a sales order, purchase order, any inventory transaction, this name change is going to change everywhere in the system that it sees this item number is going to change it to SC. Right, or whatever name you choose to have the new name to be in the system. Now, with the item number change, you do retain all the history, all the integrity of the data that is retained, right? So everything is going to maintain the way it was. The only thing that's changed is the item number name to the new name. So this is one of the PSTL tool functionalities that can be super powerful within the system. So please ensure that once you are doing this, you don't have anyone in the system, because you don't want someone utilizing the item while you're making the change. You also would like to do a backup, as I mentioned earlier in the start of this webinar. Please do a backup, right? Just in case something goes wrong, right? So you always need to have that contingency that something may have gone wrong, right? If you have never done a backup before, that's something that we can also help as well with doing your backups. right? I am not going to do the conversion, but once you click convert, it's going to update the new item number from this to this, right? Now, you can do that for customer and vendors as well. Once you have the customer name modifier and the vendor name modifier as well, you are able to use it. So we have vendor name modifier, and we also have the customer name modifier, right? So that's going to allow you to use it. And depending on what version of GP you have, under the utilities, right? Microsoft has also moved it to the outside of the PSTL tool where you could use the vendor combiner and modifier, right? And also with the items, you also have what is called an item combiner as well, right? So if you accidentally created two items that will the same, you can combine the item, and because you just wanted to have one item to come together, right? You can do that. So just remember, once you combine those items, you cannot uncombine them once you have combined them. All right? So you can select next, and you can select what is the number that you would like to combine into the second item number, right? And then you can click convert, and that will combine the two. All right, that goes in conjunction with vendors and customers as well. Right? So there's no separating, just remember that. So this is also why that I'm going to reiterate, please take a backup when utilizing STL tool, just in case you might need one. Like I said, tool can, you know, things that can happen when utilizing the tool. So you just want to be safe and sorry. Okay. One of the tools that I also wanted to touch on is the company copy tool. Now, so any of you that may be creating probably a next test database, for example, or creating a company that's very similar to what you currently have, you can use the company copy tool. And it can copy some modules, can copy all modules. So once we click next, you're going to see a company copy window appear. So you essentially would say what company you want to copy from. That would be a source company. I only have one company set up, but if you had more than one, you can say that you want to copy from your source company to your destination company. And then you can select the data that you would like to have copied. So we have the company setups, financial, payrolls, human resource. You pick and choose as you go as to which modules. If you want to also copy report options, etc. From the source to the destination company, you also have the possibility to do so as well. All right. So now the data option, all this means is that it's going to pick up the options that the customers and the master records, right? That's going to be the data and the report options are all the options that you create when you create your reports. Right? So you have that report options. Say, for example, I would to go to reports here. All right, these are all your report options. Let's use page drop balance. Let's go modify. All right, so you may create these options specifically for your month end, or maybe it may be done for a particular user, etc. You can create your report options. You can bring all that over. So whatever your case may be, it's going to copy those as well. So it is a powerful tool where you can copy lots of information. Right, you can copy that from one company to another. So it's going to do a one-time copy only. So it's not like the RM and PM master triggers. Right. Right. So you can now for sure do that copying of that master data, your reporting options, and also information from the various modules within Dynamics. Right. So that's another full functionality. All right. Okay, so like I mentioned, so all of these combiners, modifiers, you can also get it in the various areas of the different modules. We also have the fiscal period modifier, checkbook modifier, account combiner modifier. So you do have it in the various modules that it can be utilized. We have one called the GM master triggers, right, that we looked at. That's going to allow you to do the replication. Right, so I basically have touched on what the PSTL tool has to offer. So I'm hoping that you do find some tools that you can use within your organization, ones that is going to be able to allow you to make some changes in a safe way. Make sure also always do the backup, and also you just remember, if it is you do have it installed, right, you need to be running it under SA to be also able to execute the functions of the PSTL. All right, so I'm not sure if anybody has any questions, but this is in a nutshell what the PSTL can do. It's very powerful, right? So hopefully you find some way to utilize it and to receive some benefit from utilizing the PSTL tool. I'd like to thank everyone. Open to any questions, let us know. And we also are here to assist. Thank you.